Now, the next thing is, from what we learned, that the price of the call today should be equal to the present value of its future cash flows. And we said that the present value of future cash flows here involve a contingency, because you can get this cash flow if the stock price goes up and this cash flow if the stock price goes down. So you need to know the probability of the stock price going up and the stock price going down. And once you know that, you can easily get this expected cash flow from the call, and that you need to discount at the risk-free rate. So next thing that we need to discuss is that why the risk-free rate, okay? Because in derivatives, we say that there is always the possibility that all risk can be eliminated combining a risky security with a risk-free security, or even combining two risky securities. The concept of hedge portfolio is involved here. So let's suppose if you are a dealer, let me say you are a dealer and you are selling and buying calls. Okay, so you deal in options and you write calls and you buy calls. Right now, let's suppose if you are writing calls and selling calls, let's suppose you bought calls of let's make this 100 calls. We said that the prices of call and stock, they are positively related. So stock price going up, the call price going up. The stock price going down, the call price going down. So they are positively related. So if you have a long position in the call, you need to have a short position in the stock to hedge your portfolio. Remember, the goal is that no matter what happens in a hedge portfolio, if you make a gain here, you make a loss here, and the net result is zero. If you make a loss here on the call, you make a gain on the stock, and the net result is here. So that is the condition for the hedge, that your gains and losses from the two different positions in the portfolio, that is the hedge portfolio, are offset. So if you have purchased 100 calls, you are the buyer of these calls. The risk to you is that if the stock price goes down, the call price will go down. If the stock price goes down, the call price will go down, because call is your asset. If its price goes down, that is a loss for you. So what you do is that you create a short position in the stock, and when you create a short position in the stock, what happens? If the stock price goes down, you make a loss on the call, that is here, but then because you have a short position in the stock, you will make a gain here and you will be left with zero gains and losses. However, the downside of this hedge is that if the stock price goes up, you will make a gain on the call, but then you will lose whatever you have gained on the call here on the stock. Okay, so the result would be that there will be no gain or no loss again, because you want to hedge, which means you are not interested in the gains and losses. So you need to have a short position in the stock. Now, if you have written 100 call, if you have purchased 100 calls, the question is how many shares you need to sell short. Do you need to sell short 100 shares, more than 100, less than 100? Now that's the question. How would you know how many shares to sell short? Now we don't know that number, but we will denote here by H. Okay, so H here represents the hedge ratio. So the hedge ratio can be 0.5, can be 0.8, can be 1. We will see it depending upon the inputs we have. And once we have this will be what? This will be the value of the hedge portfolio. Okay, let me denote it with V naught. Let me denote this with C naught, and let me denote this with S naught. So this is right now when you create the hedge portfolio, let's suppose at time T. So you buy C naught number of calls and you sell H number of shares to hedge your position. And let me just also denote this with H naught, so you have this, because later on we will see this will change over time. Okay, so this is the current value of the portfolio. Now, because this position will be risk-free as from our discussion here, this should earn the risk-free rate. Okay, and we know from our discussion earlier that the stock price can go up to SU and it can go down to SD. Similarly, the call price will follow the same pattern, and it will go up to CU or CD in line with the movement in the stock. So that means that if right now I have this portfolio of call and stock, it can go up at T1, and it could be, if the stock price goes up, it will be equal to my position in the call, which will be now worth CU, minus my position in the stock, which will be SU multiplied into H number of shares, and the portfolio value will become VU. If the stock price goes down, the value of the hedge portfolio will be CD, my position in the call, minus my position in the stock, which will be worth SD multiplied into the H naught number of shares. And this will give me VD. Now, because this is a hedge position, what will this mean? It means that no matter the stock price goes up or goes down, it is immune. So VU should be equal to VD. That is, CU minus SUH should be equal to CD minus SDH. Okay. So if I take this position, it means CU minus SUH should be equal to CD minus SDH. And why I'm saying this? I'm saying this because I'm having a hedge portfolio. So no matter the stock price goes up or goes down, my position is hedged. Okay, in that way I can say that the value of the portfolio, the hedge portfolio, if the stock price goes up, should be equal to the value of the portfolio if the stock price goes down. If this is a hedge portfolio, then if I make a gain here, it will be offset by the loss here. If I make a loss here, it would be offset by the gain here. So VU should be equal to VD. And in that case, it should earn the risk-free rate. Now, why it should earn the risk-free rate? That's the question. So let me just first write it now like this, that V naught should be equal to VU, which and VD, and this will be related by 1 plus R and 1 plus R. That is, no matter the stock price going up or going down, the hedge portfolio, which today is equal to V naught, should be equal to VU or VD, which are both the same because the hedge portfolio always earns the risk-free rate. So this means that V naught into 1 plus R raised to the power T will be equal to VU, which should be equal to VD. That is the condition we have here. Now the question is, how do we know how many shares sell short for the hedge portfolio? If I'm buying 100 shares, 100 calls here, to hedge my position, I need to take a short position in the stock. So how many shares I need to sell short? So if you look, this is an equality, and if I can solve this, I will get the answer to my question. So I can actually rearrange the terms CU minus SUH naught is equal to CD minus SDH naught, and I can write it like this: CU minus CD is equal to SUH naught minus SDH naught. And if I rearrange it further, CU minus CD is equal to, because H naught is common here, so it will be H naught into SU minus SD. So if I rearrange it further, I can write it like the hedge ratio is equal to CU minus CD divided by SU minus ST. So this will be the hedge ratio. So if I get the intrinsic value of the stock if it goes up, minus the intrinsic value of the stock if it goes down, and divide that by the stock price if it goes up, and minus the stock price if it goes down, I'll get the hedge ratio. This calculation, you see, is relatively easy to understand.
About the VU again, please, the value of the portfolio.
Yeah,
Let's go back.
yes, sure. So you see, we just say to establish a hedge, if I am buying this number of calls, let's call it C naught, I need to sell S number of shares, H number of shares, okay, and that will be equal to the value of this portfolio where I have a long position in the call and I have a short position in the underlying, will be equal to the current value of the hedge portfolio, which is V naught. Okay, because it is a hedge portfolio. As I said, if you make a gain on the call, you will make a loss on the stock, and that will offset. And if you make a loss on the call, you will make a gain on the stock, and that will be offset. But all this depends upon the right hedge. So how many shares you need to sell short? If you do this right, only then will this be the case, the portfolio will be hedged. Now when we say the portfolio will be hedged, it means that at expiration, okay, here, no matter what, the stock price goes up to SU or the stock price goes down to SD, your portfolio is ending up going to give you the same value. And that means that the portfolio in this case here will be VU or VD, which needs to be having identical value. So I said that this will be then equal to CU minus SU and H, and this one will be equal to CD minus SDH. I said that this will be the position. Stock price going up, stock price going down, not affecting the value of the portfolio. If this is 105, this will be 105. If this is 110, this will be 110, and it will be a constant known payoff. You know this in advance. You know this in advance. Remember, what did I say in week 2, week 3, and even week 1? I said that whenever you know the future payoff with certainty, you remember, if the stock price in future can be this or this, the call price can be this and this, and you know this with certainty now, given that you know the probability. So what should happen? Such a portfolio, it's a risk-free investment. When you invest in a risk-free bond, what happens? You know that no matter what happens in the stock market, if you have invested £100 in the government bond, the stock market, London Stock Exchange going down or going up doesn't affect that. You will always get what the government has promised on its bond, let's suppose 5%. So you will get 105 in 1 year time. That is why we call them a risk-free investment, because you know at expiration of the bond or at maturity, you will always get the maturity value. So here it has become, this stock is a risky investment, this call is a risky investment. Both the positions are risky, but in one you have a long position and in the other you have a short position, and they are positively related. So if the stock price goes up, you make a gain on this, but you make a loss here because of the inverse positions you have taken. And if you make a loss here, then you make a gain here, or vice versa. The result is, here, whatever happens between the SU and CU, or SD and CD, what happens? You are hedged against it, and you know this payoff in advance, and you know this payoff in advance, because the stock price can go up or go down. So no matter what happens, the portfolio value will remain, let's suppose, 105. So when you create this portfolio here, you already know that you will have how much value. Let's suppose your portfolio is V naught and the current risk-free rate is, let's suppose, 5%. So if you are investing $100 in this portfolio, okay, so what will happen in future? You know that your portfolio will be worth 105 no matter the stock price going up or going down. So that is 1 plus R, which is equal to 1.05 and 1.05. So this is VU and this is VD. So you know this in advance. So then you cannot use any other rate to discount this cash flow back to this value. You will always be using the risk-free rate. This is what we just derived in our analysis, and you can see here that the value of the portfolio today multiplied into 1 plus R will be equal to the value of the portfolio if the stock price goes up, and the value of the portfolio if the stock price goes down. That is because it's a hedge portfolio. So if it is a hedge portfolio, then it should be protecting you against up movement and down movement. Now, this is the same formula as I discussed with you, that in future you have the cash flow possible, which is CU if the stock price goes up, and you have the cash flow possible CD if the stock price goes down. So if you know this cash flow, and of course you can estimate this cash flow today because it is the intrinsic value, and you can estimate SU and SD today. Okay, so if you today can know this value and this value, then you can estimate this value and this value. So the next thing you need to do is to know the probability of the stock price going up or going down. So if you know the probability of the stock price going up and the stock price going down, you can then just calculate the expected value of this cash flow and expected value of this cash flow and add them, and that is your weighted cash flow, and discount it by 1 plus the risk-free rate. Now, how do you calculate the probability? Probability here is equal to 1 plus R minus D divided by U minus D. If you want, I can actually sort of show you the derivation of this. So let's suppose we have the stock price today, which is equal to S naught. That is the current stock price. And the stock price can go up. So let me denote it as S plus, and the stock price can go down. Let me denote it as S minus. And then we have, let's say we have B, which is equal to 1 plus R. And then let's suppose we have A, which is equal to S naught minus the current stock price. And we have C is equal to S plus, and let's make it divided by S naught. We can write it like this. B is equal to, let's make it 1 minus P into S naught divided by S naught plus probability. Consider for this time that 1 minus P is the weight that you are investing in this stock if it goes down, and the weight that you are investing in this if it goes up. So let me just write this now. So 1 plus R, because B is equal to 1 plus R, so this one will be equal to, let me rearrange this, PC plus, let's make this A. This is A. So it is B into 1 minus P into A plus PC. So we can write this 1 minus P and A. So 1 plus R is equal to, we know that C is equal to what? S plus if the stock price goes down divided by S naught. Okay, let me just write it like this, plus 1 minus P into S naught minus S minus S naught, divided by S naught. So now we have this. If we further simplify this, it will be equal to C S naught plus divided by S naught, and if we multiply this, it will become S naught minus this. This one becomes, sorry, this will be P, and this will be P. So this one will become, if we multiply, and let me just multiply, if we multiply that by that, this will become PS plus divided by PS naught. So let me just write it again. So this one will be 1 plus R is equal to 1 minus PA plus PC, and 1 plus R is equal to, rearranging this into 1 minus PA and 1 plus R is equal to P into S plus divided by S naught plus 1 minus P into S minus divided by S naught, and 1 plus R is equal to PS plus divided by PS naught, and this one will become S naught minus this, and this one will become PS minus divided by S naught. So now if you see this, I can take this term to the other side, and it will become 1 plus R minus S naught, S minus divided by S naught, and I'll be left with PS plus divided by PS naught minus PS negative divided by PS naught. Okay, so 1 plus R minus S naught, S negative divided by S naught. And if I see this P is common, so I'll take P as common, and then I'm left with what? S plus divided by S naught minus P S naught divided by, sorry, this P will not be here, P is common. Let me just delete this. And this one will be S naught. So you see, this S naught minus S naught is equal to what? It is basically the D factor. This is what? This is basically the U factor, because the stock price going up divided by S naught. If the stock price goes up to $125 divided by 100, so it will be equal to 1.25. And if the stock price goes down to 80, so 80 divided by 100, so the down factor will be equal to 0.8. So if I do this, you can see this is now the D factor again. So if I rearrange this, you see this is an equation. So if I take this term to the other side, it will become, it is multiplied here, so it will become a divisor on the other side. So I'll be rearranging this as P is equal to 1 plus R minus S negative divided by S naught divided by S positive divided by S naught minus S negative divided by S naught, because if I take this term to the other side, this is what it will become. Okay, so if I just further simplify it, it will be 1 plus R minus D divided by U minus D. So now we know how to calculate the probability. We know how to calculate CU, CD. We know why to use R, and we know how to calculate C. For us, the rule is simple: present value of future cash flows. The only thing changing here is that we have to use probability weighted cash flows, and the discount rate will always be R. And I told you to please read the text box in the chapter where they are discussing the formula that we are discussing here. Please read that, and you will see there is a very good discussion on why we are using the risk-free rate, and whether the discount rate or the required rate of return on the stock is the same as the required rate of return on the call, and if not, why not, and if it is, how much. So have a look at this discussion there, and if you have any question, I can entertain that later in our drop-in sessions next week. If I take the example that we have here, so let's suppose the current stock price is equal to 100. If the stock price goes up by 1.25, let's suppose U is equal to 1.25, SU will be equal to 125, and if it goes down, D is equal to 0.8, so SD will be equal to 100. And in that case, if we want to calculate the price of the call, we will have to look at CU and we will have to look at CD, which will be equal to the maximum of 0, or the current stock price is how much? The current stock price is 125 if the stock price goes up. So 125 minus exercise price is equal to 100. So the CU will be equal to 25. If the stock price goes down, the intrinsic value at expiration will be 100 minus 100. So that will be, 80 minus 100. So that will be equal to 0. So we know CU and we know CD. We are not told how much is P, but we can calculate that because the risk-free rate is given, the D and the U factors are given. So P will be equal to 1 plus R minus D divided by U minus D. In this case, 1.07 minus 0.8 divided by 1.25 minus 0.8, and that is approximately equal to 0.6. So P is 0.6. So 1 minus P will be 0.4. 1 minus 0.6, 0.4. So now we know P is equal to 0.6, and 1 minus P will be equal to 0.4. So we now have all the inputs. So we just need to calculate the present value of these future cash flows, multiply them by their respective probabilities, and discount them at the risk-free rate to get the value of the call, which in this case is 14.02. So what is the probability that you will receive $25 at the end of the period? And because we are using 7% here, so it means we are assuming that it is a 1 year period. So if you purchase the call, if you want to purchase the call today, what price you should be paying? You should be paying 14.02. Why? Because in future there is a chance of you getting 25 pounds, and the probability of that is 0.6, that is 60%. And there is a chance that in future 1 year later the call will be out of money and you will get nothing, and the probability of that is 0.4. So if you do this, you get the expected or weighted future cash flows, and you divide that by the risk-free rate, and you get 14.02 as the call price. How do we know that this is the correct price? How do we know that this is the correct price? So for this we will be doing hedge portfolio. And if the hedge portfolio that we create with this call, if it goes up and if it goes down and always earns the price is correct. So let's have a look at that. If I go to the hedge portfolio here, let's suppose in this case, right now the stock price is 100 and it can go up to SU and SD. SU will be 125 and SD will be 0.8 multiplied by 100, so 80. And that would mean that the CU will be 25 and CD will be 0, and we just calculated C naught to be equal to 14.02. So these are the possibilities. So to create the hedge portfolio, we learned that hedge portfolio will be equal to C naught minus S naught H. This will give us the value of the hedge portfolio. Now, how many shares do we need to sell short? So for that, we need to calculate the hedge ratio, which will be CU minus CD divided by SU minus SD. And CU is 25 minus 0, and this is 125 minus 80. So the result is 25 minus 45. So we get the hedge ratio equal to 0.556. So what does this mean? If I am buying, let's suppose, if I am buying one call, for every call I need to short 0.556 shares. So if I am buying 100 calls, I need to sell 555.6 shares. If I am buying 1000 calls, I need to short 556 shares. If I am selling calls, then to hedge the portfolio, I will need to buy the call. So here I am buying calls, so I need to short the stocks, the calls. Okay. If I am selling the calls, for example, if I am selling the calls, here I have a buy position in the call, and then I'm selling the shares. But if I am selling the calls, then I need to actually buy the shares. So to hedge, I need to have the opposite position in the call and the shares. Now here, what is happening? It is a dealer who is writing calls. Okay, so if the dealer is writing calls, what is going to happen? He has liability, and his liability in the calls will be unlimited, isn't it? As a call writer, the stock price can go, theoretically speaking, to infinity. And if that happens, the gains of the buyer of the call will be unlimited, and the losses of the call writer will be unlimited. To hedge against this risk, the dealer needs to hedge by buying shares, because he has a short position in the call. He needs to buy the shares. Now, let's suppose here the dealer is selling 1000 calls at 14.02. If he sells 1000 calls at 14.02, he will receive how much cash? He will receive $14,020 as cash flows. He is the writer of the calls. Each call is selling for a price of 14.02. So if he sells the calls, he will receive 14.02 per call, that is 14,020 for 1000 calls. Remember, our objective is to establish that the price of 14.02 is the fair price. It is not overvalued or undervaluing the call. Now, to hedge this risk, he needs to buy how many shares? The hedge ratio is 0.556. So he needs to buy 556 shares, and each share right now is selling at a price of $100. So how much is the amount needed to buy 556 shares? 55,600 is the amount needed. So to avoid arbitrage, this portfolio that he is creating here will always earn the risk-free rate, and that is, there is no chance of losing money in the hedge portfolio. That is why he needs to be investing money here. If he is not investing money here, what will happen? There will be arbitrage. Okay, what should happen? How much amount should he be investing? $41,580. Okay, that is the amount of money to be invested. This is the value of the hedge portfolio today. Why it should be earning the risk-free rate? If you look at it, as we said, that the future outcome for this portfolio, no matter the stock price goes up or goes down, will be the same. Here we see there is a $20 difference, but it is because of the rounding off in the hedge. So when the future outcome is known with certainty, remember, this is an important statement I'm making. If the future outcome is known with certainty, then the portfolio or the investment should always earn the risk-free rate. In this case, the hedge portfolio, whether the stock price goes up or the stock price goes down, its value should be the same. And if there is any difference, it is just only because of the rounding off. So the first logic of why we should be using the risk-free rate in the discounting is that we know the payout with certainty. Okay. The next thing is that because you are investing, to invest in the hedge portfolio, to buy these 556 shares, what does the dealer need? The dealer needs to invest $41,580 in this portfolio, which has a certain payoff. This money, the dealer may be borrowing. The dealer may be borrowing this money. And if he or she is borrowing this money, the rate of borrowing, we assume, is the risk-free rate, that is 7%. So if you are borrowing money to invest in this hedge portfolio, then the hedge portfolio should earn you minimum the amount that you will be expected to pay as interest on this. So this is why you also consider that the portfolio should be earning the risk-free rate, because that is what the cost of funding this investment strategy would be. This much money dealer needs to put out of his pocket, that is a negative cash, and assuming that he has to bear a cost of it, the opportunity cost of investing this much money in the hedge portfolio should be at least the risk-free rate. If you create this hedge portfolio today, you need to invest this much money. If the stock price goes up in future, you will have 1,000 calls, and each call, because you have a negative position in it, each call will be worth 25. So you will make a loss of 25,000 here. I would not say a loss of 25,000. That's wrong. But 1,000 calls, each one will be worth $25,000. So you see, you sold them for 14,020. Okay, and now the settlement is 25,000. So if you sell something for a low price and you have to buy it back for a high price, it is a loss, isn't it? So here you are making a loss on the call because you sold them for a low price and you have to settle them for a higher price. However, this loss will be made good by shares, because the shares you purchased for $100 and now they are worth 125. So if you multiply this, you get 69,500. So you see, you made a loss here on the calls. You sold them for 14,020, but they are now worth 25,000. So you made a loss here. However, you made a gain here. How much gain you made? You purchased shares for 55,600 here. That was a negative cash flow. And if you sell them now, you will sell them for 69,500. A loss on the call, but a gain on the end result is that if you look at your net portfolio, you have 44,500 positive cash flow. So you invested 41,580, which will return to you 44,500 at the end of the period. If you calculate your rate of return, it will be the future value of your investment in the hedge portfolio divided by the present value of the investment in the hedge portfolio. So if you do that, it is approximately 7%, which is the risk-free rate. If the stock price goes down, what will happen? You have 1,000 calls and each call is worth $0. So you sold them for 14,020 and they have a zero value. So you don't have to actually settle them because the options will expire out of the money, and you have made a gain on the calls because you sold them for this and you can buy them back or you can settle them for zero price. However, this gain is offset by the loss on the calls because you purchased 556 shares at the rate of 100 and they are worth 80 now, which is equal to an amount of 44,480. So you are making a loss here on the shares because you purchased them for 55,600 and they are worth 44,480. The net result is that your value of portfolio is 4480, which again is approximately equal to a 7% rate of return, the risk-free rate. So you see, in any case, the hedge portfolio is earning the risk-free rate. If the stock price goes up or the stock price goes down, irrespective of that, the hedge portfolio is earning the risk-free rate approximately for the investor. Now, what if the call price is overpriced at 15? See, the calculated value was 14.02. That is the fair price, isn't it? The call price is more than 14. Let's suppose if it is 15, it is overpriced. So what you will do, if it is overpriced, you will sell the calls and you will invest in the risk-free bond or the risk-free investment, and your rate of return at the end of the period will be more than the risk-free rate. So for example, if the stock price goes up, you sell it for 15. So you see what will happen. If you have 1,000 calls and you sell them at 15, you will receive $15,000 rather than 14,000. Okay, and you will buy 556 shares at the rate of how much? 100. So that will be 55,600. So your net investment in the hedge portfolio will be how much? It will be 40,600. Now, you know that if the stock price goes up and the stock price goes down, VU and VD, we just calculated the value of the hedge portfolio. If it goes up, it will be how much? 45,000 and that was 44,500. So 44,500 and approximately the same if it goes down. So now you calculate your rate of return, 44,500 divided by 40,600. So what rate of return you are earning? 9.6%, which is higher than the risk-free rate of 7%. So this is an arbitrage because you are able to earn a rate of return higher than what you should have been earning. Your hedge portfolio should earn 7% return, but it is giving you a realized rate of return of 9.6%. And the only reason you are able to do this is that the call is overpriced. So when the call is overpriced, you will sell the call and you will buy the shares. What if the share price, the call price is 13, that is underpriced? In that case, you will do the reverse. So for example, if the call price is 13, what you would do, you will buy calls, okay, and then you will do what? Short the shares. So if you do that, if you buy the calls, 1,000 calls will cost you $13,000 in cash flow, and you will sell the shares for 100. So they will realize you a money of 55,600. So you can see you are getting 42,600 here. This is the value of your hedge portfolio. It is just like being able to borrow at the rate of at a rate of lower than risk-free rate. So you are able to generate a positive cash flow of 42,600 here. And you know that this portfolio has a value of 44,500 if the stock price goes up or goes down. So you can calculate the rate of return here as 44,500 divided by 42,600 minus 1, and that is approximately equal to 4.46%. So if this call price is less than 14.02, it is underpriced and you will buy the calls and sell the shares. That will generate you a positive cash flow of 42,600. In future, you will have to pay back 44,500 if the stock price goes up or goes down. That is a fixed position. So it is equivalent to be able to borrow at a rate less than the risk-free rate. Remember, the risk-free rate was 7%. Okay, and you are here realizing a rate of return of less than 7%, and this is reflecting that if you do this position, you are able to effectively borrow at a rate less than the risk-free rate. Again, it is an arbitrage. Being able to invest at a higher risk-free, at a rate higher than the risk-free rate, or at a rate lower than the risk-free rate, both results in arbitrage. So if the call is overpriced, you will be able to earn a rate of return higher than the risk-free rate. And if the call is underpriced, you will be able to earn a rate of return. You will be able to borrow at a rate of return less than the risk-free rate. If it is underpriced, you see what you will do. You will buy the calls. Okay, whatever is underpriced. You know the rule is whatever is underpriced, buy it. Okay, so buy 1,000 calls, and these calls will be available at 13. So you will be investing how much money in it? 13,000. Okay, and at the same time, what you will do? You will sell 556 shares, because that is what the hedge ratio suggests, at the rate of 100. So if you sell 556 shares, you will generate $55,600 from it. That is a positive cash flow. If you use 13,000 of this cash flow to buy these calls, you will be still left with 42,600 positive upfront cash flows. Okay, so this is the value of the hedge portfolio at the start. And you know that in future there are two possibilities, that is VU and VD. And we just saw that if you have the correct hedge portfolio, the stock price going up or the stock price going down, in both the cases the hedge portfolio will have the same value. Okay, we saw that it was having 44,480, but that was just when we rounded off, that was because of that, so I'll ignore that. So no matter what happens in future, you will have to pay back how much money? 44,500, because you are in a way borrowing this money. Why? Because you are short selling it, isn't it? So you are borrowing this much money. The net amount you are borrowing is 42,600. So in future you will have how much money to pay back? 44,500, the payoff from the hedge portfolio. So
where did you get that number from?
This 44,500.
Yes.
Okay, so you see, in future the stock price will be how much? 125. CU will be how much? 25, isn't it? So you will have 1,000 calls, okay, that you have purchased. So each call will be worth now, because you have purchased, so it will have a plus sign. Okay, so 25,000, isn't it? You will get $25,000 from the calls, but then you have sold 556 shares here, so you will need to buy them back here. So that will be a minus sign of 556 shares at 125. 556 multiplied into 125, 69,500. So you will have to use this much money to buy back the shares. So your net amount that you need to actually sort of use is 44,500 to buy these shares, because 25,000 will be received from the sale of the from the exercise of the calls. Okay, so you see, this is how you get this. And if the stock price goes down, the 1,000 calls will be worth zero. Okay, but then the 556 shares that you need to purchase will also have a reduction in their price of 80, so that will be approximately 4480. That is, if I just round them, 44,500. Okay, now